Hello and welcome again to another screencast edition of Adobe Animate CC. From my previous videos, I have taught Adobe Flash CS6. Today we're going to move on to the most updated version of Adobe Creative Cloud Animate CC. So today what we're going to do is we're going to create a simple animation using motion path animation setup. So what we're going to do is create an Actionscript 3.0. Not a class or interface, just a simple Actionscript 3.0. So when you have everything set up, you should have a stage already established. What we're going to do is resize the stage. So if you go here to your properties panel, please input 720 480. That should be more or less a good standard widescreen setup. So we're going to center this right here. Now the next step of what we're going to be doing is adding in our animation assets. First thing we could do is go to File, Import to Library. Reason why we do this, put this in the library, it makes it a lot easier in case a said object either is corrupt or stops working. So at least he can refer back onto that same library and reuse it all over again for another project. Other than that, what I'm going to do is select cow pasture and UFO. So press open. And now if I go to my libraries panel, you'll see both of these images are in. Now keep in mind, if you want to use graphics, be sure to have a PNG, especially with a translucent background. It makes it easier to work with, especially if you're using images of that sort. Now, before I do anything else, I'm going to change the layer name and call this background. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to temporarily lock this right over here, and I'm going to create a new layer. Now, on layer 2, what I'm going to do, I'm going to rename this. I'll call this pasture. Now, this is where I'm going to drag in my image right here and drag it to the stage. Even though it's large, that's okay. We could easily resize them by using the free transform tool. Hold the shift key to resize, zoom in for a little bit, adjust. Now I'm going to manually there we go. Everything is adjusted within the setup, so of course we still have a blank setup. So we're going to add in something more here in our background. So I'm going to lock our pasture layer and release the background layer. So the next step, what I'm going to do is use the rectangle tool to make the grass and the sky. Be sure when you select it that you have your stroke values set to none, so at least you don't have any stroke values in there. We're going to keep it bare with the fill color. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use my eyedropper tool and choose a more proper color. And I'm going to go right here to my color picker, go a shade darker right here. Now, once I have that, go back to my rectangle tool. Make sure I go to my background layer, click and drag my little pasture. And there we go, I got my green pasture here. I'm going to do the same thing for my sky here. And I'm going to go to my color picker here. There we go. And make the adjustments to there. If you're not satisfied with a specific color, then you could easily select the object and of course go for something more of a shade that you want within it. So I'm going to break this a little bit lighter right here. Then I'm going to deselect it. Of course, if I need to resize this, I can, so it doesn't Same thing with this. It's not going to be perfect, but that's okay. What you want to do is at least establish the shade of both the sky and the grass pasture. Now that I have that, I'm going to lock this again. Now what I'm going to do is create a new layer. Make sure I select the pasture layer and add a new layer from the bottom right here. It's the bottom left-hand corner. So I have my layer 3. I'm going to rename it. I'm going to call this UFO. Now I'm going to drag my UFO image down into this layer of the stage. Of course, it's going to be a little bit large, but that's okay. What we're going to do is resize it to a reasonable setup. So I'm going to move this right here, center it there. I'm going to resize it even a little bit more. I'm going to set this here outside of the stage. Reason why is when we begin to animate, it's going to take a little bit of time to sort of get it into a right setting and smoothness within it. Now, as you notice, once you establish something right here, you create a keyframe. Now, keep in mind, as soon as you step out of the keyframe, for example, let's see, insert keyframe here. For example, as soon as I move out of the keyframe, everything disappears. So I want you to take this time to click on the layer and find the ending right here of these keyframes and right click and insert keyframe. You're going to repeat the same thing here and insert keyframe. So at least you have one setup of this background. So no matter what, it's going to show. Now, we're going to break it down into several segments with our UFO, with the animation path. So, of course, what I'm going to do is right click. Before I do anything else, I am going to make sure, I'm going to delete this here. Let's see, remove frames. There we go. So I'm going to go back to part 1. So right here, before I do anything else and begin to animate, what I'm going to do is create this and right click and convert it to a symbol. Now with the symbol, you have the ability to distort it, resize it, move it however you want without having any permanent damage. So I'm going to call this chip. Here we go. And leave it as a movie clip because we're going to do this as an animated sequence. Here we go. Now that I have that, I'm going to go back to layer, at least frame 5, right click, insert keyframe. Now you'll see right here from here, you'll have this set up. And what I'm going to do is go to create motion tween. Now, everything you see, you'll notice it turns blue at that point. So what you're going to do is move this from here. So nothing much is going on right now, but what we could do is again, highlight this back, go back to your properties panel, and you'll notice this little ease feature. So what you're going to do is ramp it up to at least 100. So at least your graphic symbol, your symbol moves in a little bit more smoother. So I'm going to do this again, frame 10. Let's see, insert keyframe. Now you'll notice as soon as I insert a keyframe, you have a different setup from here, from scale, skew, rotation, because you also have to deal with not only the XY values, but also take in consideration of scaling proportions and rotation whatsoever. So we'll do all right here. And you'll notice right from this point that you'll start to create a line right here. and it's a little bit more consistent. Now, if you want to make an adjustment, you can, just like that. And of course, I'm going to go to frame 15, right click, insert keyframe, all. Now you'll notice it'll continue, but you'll see a difference right here. Instead of a circle, there's like a diamond-shaped keyframe. It's of course a motion path in a sense, and a motion tween to help create that. So of course, I'm going to move this down, but this time I'm going to resize it to create that sort of illusion that it's swerving in and out within this area to create a sort of a pseudo depth within the scene. So I'm going to do the same thing right here. And we're going to move this over here. Resize. When you play it, of course, it's pretty much looks like it's going in and out, weaving through the set. Now do be careful and changing up anything midway, because you will create a keyframe along the way. So of course, right here, insert keyframe all. I'm going to repeat the same thing here. And of course, I'm going to resize it to there. Now what we're going to do, we're going to do it again, insert a keyframe. Right here, space it out just a little bit more. To here. And of course, we'll space it out again, right click, insert keyframe, all, to here. So when you play it back, it plays just like that. Now, if it goes a little bit too fast, that's okay. We could still add in a few frames. For example, I'll highlight here and insert frames. And it'll space out a little bit more of each frame, so it won't go too fast. You could go in 2s and 3s, whichever works for you. Careful on your selection, or else it'll overextend. There you go. It should be spaced out sufficiently. There you go. So we'll play this again. There we go. Now we'll make one minor adjustment. Like this. And everything's set up. This concludes today's screencast tutorial of Adobe Animate CC.